Welcome to Quickshots. Quickshots.
Welcome, everybody, to Quickshots, your favourite cousins, James and Alex Fitzgerald, where we take your questions and try and give you the best answer we can. If you've ever got ones, feel free to send one in, by the way, on our socials or our emails in the show notes. Alex, I'm going to hand the first one to you. It comes from Emily, and she wants to know, in this market, is it better to flip and sell for a profit or to buy and hold?
Oh, great question. So look, my answer in the short is always hold, especially in this market though, which Emily, you're specifically asking about, because we've seen quite a lot of growth in the last year and a half. There would be an element of risk trying to speculate flipping. And I'm assuming you mean flipping in the next 12 to 24 months. Maybe that's an incorrect assumption. Maybe you mean flipping in 5 years. But there will always be an element of risk when you are flipping. But I would also like to caveat that by saying, what are you bringing to this house if you're looking at flipping it? Are you an incredible, do you and your partner fancy the block and you've got incredible skills whereby you can do a full renovation yourself, living in it, and therefore get maximum capital gains? I mean, it really depends. In my opinion, though, you're really talking about simple versus compound growth. Simple growth is buying and selling, buying and selling, buying and selling. When you sell, you're going to either sit on some money for a bit and then try to buy back into that same market. Therefore, your net gain might not be that much. Or when we talk compound growth, you buy, hold, wait for the growth. When you get that growth, you use that growth to leverage you into another property, and you've got two properties growing at the same time. And that, Emily, is compound growth. Sorry if I butchered that. I think there are many different ways that you can do this, but I feel that in my world, compound growth is absolutely the way to go. And as Warren Buffett says, it is the eighth wonder of the world. Cuz this one is from Midril. This is quite an interesting one. I've never been asked this before, and I don't know if you have, but very interesting. Midril says, is depreciation really a benefit if you have to pay it back in the capital gains tax when you sell?
Okay, very good one. So for those who maybe aren't sure what Midril's talking about, she's referencing the fact that you can claim depreciation each year on a property as a way to reduce your tax at the end of the year. The downside to that is that it reduces the cost of the property. So whatever you paid for the property, the depreciation gets deducted so that if you ever sell, you have to pay tax on the difference between what you sell for and the cost less all of the value that you've depreciated. So it increases your capital gains bill. There is no one way to do it. So I wouldn't sort of say that I or you have ever said that it's the only way to do it is claim the depreciation each year. Most people do, and I do. The reason I choose to do that is because I feel that the money is better off in my pocket because it can either reduce my home loan mortgage or I can reinvest it at a higher rate of growth. The second reason to that point is I'm paying quite a high amount of tax today relative to what I might be paying once I'm retired and actually in a position where I might sell. And then the third one is I'm not sure that if I can avoid selling at all, that would be my preferred option. So in an ideal world, I'll keep my properties for another 30, 40 years and give myself an income in retirement out of them and then pass them on. So, in that sense, it's sort of it's not really an equation. So very good question, Midril. I don't think there is one way to do it, but certainly I tend to claim the depreciation because of those three reasons I just spoke to.
And Cuz, just to plug your book actually for a minute there, in Bulletproof Investing, you spoke about how you sat down with your mum and you went through all of the properties that she had with your dad bought and sold over the years, and effectively what they bought them for and what they would be worth today. And going back to those first two questions from Emily and Midril, with the benefit of hindsight, you always go, man, if only we had kept those.
Yeah, correct.
And owned them today.
And they bought and doubled their money in a couple of those instances as well, but they just kept doubling and doubling over each 10-year period. It really adds up. I'm going to, and that actually leads in quite nicely to this next question. It came from Ali, and Ali asked for a bit of advice for someone who is young. She said here she's got a large inheritance, but a low-paying job. So she wants to know, is it still possible to buy, is part A. Part B is, what would be the best strategy or route to becoming a successful investor over time?
Wow, that's a good one. We've actually got a few clients that I can recall in the last 3, maybe 4 years that have actually had a very similar situation. There is definitely a property out there that you will be able to buy. Of course, we need to know the numbers in terms of how much inheritance or cash you've got readily available and how much your income is to service that debt. But I believe that if you were to buy and maximize that money that you've got, it would be amazing to see turning that inheritance into more money over time and eventually paying you an income when perhaps you're not working anymore. I believe the smartest route would be to look for the most cash flow positive property that you can get. And in our world, Cuz, the most cash flow positive property that you can get is in a high growth suburb, Clang, is basically giving you money after tax and in some instances before tax. So as soon as you've got that rented out, your tenant is paying for all of your expenses, everything, and you've still got some money left over time. But also if you buy and build brand new, you're going to minimize your expenses. So you're not going to have to contribute out of, as you've said, your lower income. And it will look after itself. And at a point, you may indeed be able to duplicate that and make your inheritance into a relatively strong portfolio. Guys, did you want to add anything else to that, though, for Ali?
And buy land. Buy land, get good cash flow, as Alex said, and then just hold and repeat. And over time is probably the most important part of her question. If you can be really patient and just wait, you'll the longer you hold them, the better you'll do.
And I agree. I mean, if you're comparing to keeping it in your bank, it's just not going to compare to anything. So I would say definitely do something, but of course, be smart and make sure that I guess you're getting advice from an expert, and that's somebody that has not only done it but is doing it, and they're doing it successfully. Because a lot of people are going to want to give you advice, Ali, and it may not all be correct. So good luck.
Well, great questions today. How good. Emily, Midril and Ali, thank you very much for your questions. Anyone else, if you're sitting on a question, send it through. We love to hear from you guys. If you can recommend us to one friend, we really appreciate it. And a little like for the pod would be awesome as well. Have a good week.
Have a good one. Thanks for listening to another episode of The Double Shot with your favourite cousins, Alex and James Fitzgerald. If you've got a burning question or something we absolutely need to talk about on the pod, please write to us. Both of our emails are in the show notes. For little real estate tidbits and a little bit of banter, okay, a lot of banter, you can follow us on the gram. Our handle is thedoubleshot.podcast. That, my friends, is thedoubleshot.podcast. Until next time, think of us when you sit back and sip your next double shot.